Welcome! Now we're on video 21 in the Catholic theological tradition. And last video we ended with the idea of Augustine, the doctor of grace, defending the necessity of grace against Pelagius. Now, we know that God can use heretics to force Christians, to force Catholics to develop doctrine, to make it more explicit and clearer, to grow in their understanding. So that's one of the positive sides of fighting heresy. Now there's a negative side, and we have to guard ourselves against this today. Augustine unfortunately succumbed to it a bit, and that is, we can let the attacks of heretics so absorb our attention, and we can work so hard to counterbalance them that we can go too far and elaborate a doctrine that is either just unbalanced or actually veers off the straight and narrow and goes outside the boundaries of orthodoxy. Now, at this point in time, orthodoxy is not defined when it comes to these issues in terms of any solemn councils. Remember, all the councils, ecumenical, happen in the East. So the great extraordinary declarations that are binding on the whole church are all about the Trinity and Christ. There's nothing, as of yet, that's established in Christian doctrine in some extraordinary way, in some way that's solemnly confessed by the church regarding these issues. There's local councils, there's popes who excommunicate individuals, but it's still being worked out. So Augustine is absolutely trying his best as a son of the church to do justice to the truth. But here's where he gets in trouble. When it comes down to God's grace, we have to understand that it's powerful enough to transform us. The question is, can God's grace be resisted? And Augustine says, no, if God's grace is powerful, if God's grace is sovereign, then it must be irresistible. Which means that God chooses to give his grace to some people so they can be saved, and doesn't choose to give it to others. Now, Augustine, to his credit, doesn't say that God positively wills and destines anybody in particular to hell. That would be known as double predestination. Instead, he basically says that God destines some who are part of the lost humanity. He destines some for eternal salvation, and the others he leaves to their own devices, which means he leaves to the loss of paradise, of Adam and Eve. So this is a problem. And some people, we're going to find out that this is debated for a while, this issue of the irresistibility of grace. But I just want you to understand that Augustine here materially is wrong. He's not formally a heretic. He's not intending in any way to go against the teaching of the church, but he's missing something here that later on becomes clarified. And he basically says God is omnipotent, God is free, God's grace is efficacious. Therefore, if he gives it, love, holiness, salvation inevitably, infallibly is going to flow from this call of God, this predestination of God, and this grace of God. Okay, so the Catholic Church does not follow Augustine here. If you remember what I said earlier, virtually all the fathers, as they went to try to do more than just pass on the apostolic tradition, but to explain it, nearly all of them made a misstep or two. Gregory of Nazianzus is, many say, perhaps the only one who didn't take a misstep, okay, but a lot of people did. Origen, big time, although he was totally a man of the church and was totally submitted to the teaching of the church, and never, ever would ever wanted to have done anything that would have led people away from God's truth and the bosom and the embrace of Holy Mother Church. No, but he did make a lot of mistakes. Augustine made this mistake, okay? So I just want you to understand that.
Thank you.